Time for another board recap podcast. How are you today, Dr. Smith?
Good. And as we approach the middle of February, uh, this year is moving on, and
It is.
Valentine's Day is right around the corner.
Right around the corner. And I think I told you before we started, you're going to have to be really prepared to answer these questions because we had high school students in earlier today. We're going to be posting those podcasts over the next week. And I'm telling you what, they brought their A game. So you're going to really have to
Well,
do a nice job here to compete with
understand.
them.
And thanks for setting the bar so high for me
Right.
based upon our high school students, but our high school students always do a great job.
They are. You're going to enjoy listening.
I
They've
love
been
those
great.
podcasts because of, that's why we're in the business.
Just hearing them reflect on their school experiences and it just really, I think people are really going to enjoy listening to that, as they will you too. So we'll dive into last night's school board meeting, if you will. So
Good.
we'll start with good news. So this is Kindness Week. I don't know if people realize that, but a lot of our schools, especially elementary schools, are just doing some fun things to celebrate Great Kindness Challenge as part of Kindness Week. If you're looking at the pictures, we had Cynthia Heights pictured, but I know a lot of elementary schools especially are doing things. And what better way to lift people up than talking about being kind to one another and being good families at school? Because really our students are part of a family at school.
You know what? I've heard it said that we can learn lots from kids.
Absolutely.
I think maybe we can learn a lot from Kindness Week.
I think you're very right about
Let's
that.
extend that to Kindness Year.
Yeah, I think that's
Kindness Year.
I think that's a good idea. Next thing in good news, somebody that's not a stranger to us talking about him in this podcast, and that is Braden Riley from Wrights High School senior for the fourth time. And I think you said that was the first time that's ever happened.
Right.
He was named the Philharmonic Orchestra's Young Artist or won that competition for the fourth time. He is an amazing strings player. And just quickly, with your experience, Dr. Smith, I mean, what is it about Braden that makes him just phenomenal?
Well, I think several things. First of all, that Philharmonic Orchestra's Youth Prize competition, that's not just Evansville. I mean,
Okay.
from there were competitors from Louisville, Indianapolis, all around this region. Braden's a once-in-a-generation talent. He's got incredible work ethic. Is he gifted? He's obviously gifted,
Sure.
but he also has put in the work to let those gifts flourish. And he's just a joy to be around. Incredibly humble, just a great kid. I know he is auditioning out in San Francisco, up in Michigan, I think Cleveland. So
it's going to really be interesting to see where his musical career takes him.
yes.
For sure. So we've definitely enjoyed having him as part of the EVSC and really is, like you said, kind of a once in a lifetime type student in that area. Also with good news, Harrison High School in a game against Central High School participated in something they call a teddy bear toss, teddy bear challenge, where students love when high school students really take the lead and spearhead a community project where they got donations that they're going to then share with children in the area who are in hospitals or not, who are ill. And this was a game against Central. And I think at one point they threw them all out onto the floor and collected them. So really like seeing them take part and lead that challenge and make that donation.
I was at the Central Sectional Championship game this past Saturday where the Central girls were the sectional champion. And
congrats to
well,
them.
I tell you, Central had an incredible fan base, and the students there, great. You can tell that wasn't their first game where they just showed up, but that's what makes high school special.
Absolutely. It's all part of those
one of many
memories
things,
and
yes.
experiences for sure. And then speaking of something special, once again, the Cops Connecting with Kids Disney Adventure wrapped up for another year. They were gone last week. This involved 85 students from schools in the area. And this is, as we've said before, just an example of a phenomenal partnership between local law enforcement, schools, building those relationships. They literally work all year long on trying to gather donations in a number of different events to be able to provide this trip for students. And we just want to thank everyone that was involved with that. I know the students made great memories.
Certainly do.
Okay. And that takes care of good news. So if you would take us through consent items,
All right.
please.
And I'll tell our listeners that this is one of the shortest board agendas we've had. So
sure.
We'll try not to spoil it by talking too much. Moving into item 3.02, allowance of payments for this 2-week period of time, $10.2 million. And then 3.03, consideration to approve the agreement with Tyler Sims. So we have a great program where we have really adjunct music instructors that provide private lessons for our students. And Tyler, great trombonist, is the latest to add to our stable of great music teachers.
Yeah, we really have worked on trying to get people that just have great experiences with teaching music to for the benefit of our students.
Right. Then item 3.04, the last one in the consent items, that was the consideration to ratify the agreement with the Indiana School Boards Association. And the board at its January 27th meeting did approve to engage ISBA for the superintendent search. So this was simply the approval of that contract.
Okay, and then that takes us into personnel recommendations.
So personnel recommendations are there for your perusal, and encourage our public to click on that, and you will see all of the personnel changes that occurred.
Okay, and then we had 3 action items last night.
Yes, so item 5.01 is consideration of the network upgrade proposal. So that was presented to the board as an information item in the January 27th meeting. That contract was awarded to PC Quest. And then moving on to 5.02, consideration to approve the purchase of teacher devices. The board did approve that on Monday's meeting also, and that was for 942 HP ProBook 440 laptops. And this is the 4-year refresh for that. And these are for middle school and high school teachers. And then the last action item was 5.03, consideration to award the contract for the Harrison High School Chemistry Lab remodel of 2025. And that is sorely needed for Harrison High School. So very happy that that will be undertaken in 2025. The best base bid that we had was Danco Construction, nearly $1 million, $992,200, and we are excited for that work to begin.
Absolutely, that's going to be great for Harrison. I know they're
Yes.
very excited about it. And then looks like our Chief Facility Officer, Stephen Scheller, presented 2 items for information last night.
Yes, so the first information item was 6.01, consideration to award the contract for the Culver Family Learning Center roofing project of 2025. And that was presented as an information item, and BNS Roofing had the lowest best bid. And then moving on to 6.02, consideration to award the contract for the Perry Heights Middle School flooring renovations, a project 2025. And then it's Lashley Floor Coverings, doing business as Razor Floor Covering, in the amount of $337,000 for their base bid, and then one alternate, for a total bid of $339,555. And that will serve Perry Heights well. They certainly do
Yes.
need that new carpet. I think it was installed in the 1990s. So I think we've gotten to
Yeah,
good
every
years out
school
of it.
where well, I think you're right, and every school that we have replaced the carpeting, it just looks fantastic when you go into those
Amazing what that
schools.
refresh will do.
Yes, for sure. And then that wrapped up the information section and took us into continued business. And I know you did a bit of a recap from a press conference you were a part of with community leaders yesterday.
Yes, so that is referring to Senate Bill 1, which is the governor's proposal to uh, revise our property tax structure in Indiana. And I'll say out of the gate today, like I did last night and like we did in the press conference, I really do embrace the desire and the need to reform our property tax
Sure.
system. I just would urge some caution and to think about what that really means. Um, it's hard to provide a simplistic answer because property taxes are pretty complex, but suffice it to say that property taxes are a locally generated tax that serves local communities. There's not a penny of property tax that funds the state government, but yet legislators in Indianapolis really do want to control how much is raised, and in doing so, control how it's spent. And this impacts every political subdivision in the state, local political subdivisions. It impacts every governmental entity in Vanderbilt County, including schools. But I just want to take a moment to talk about the city.
Sure, because that's who you were with yesterday, city
Right.
officials, county officials
Yeah.
at this press conference.
I think they would lose about $7.6 million. That is a large chunk of their operations budget. I think at least 50% of their operations budget goes to firefighter salaries as well as police officer salaries. So, as I've said many times, operations funding funds people. People provide services. So you can't reduce funding without reducing people. And when you reduce people, you reduce services. So I know how important it is to have great response times. Imagine having a family member that's having a heart attack and you call 911, and the response time, because you have fewer first responders spread out over a larger area, and their response time is maybe a minute slower than it would have been. In a heart attack, that kind of cardiovascular disease, uh, seconds matter.
Seconds count, absolutely.
So that's why, certainly, do we need to reform property taxes? Yes. I just don't want us to be reactive. I would love for us to be proactive and make certain that as we enact property tax reform, we also don't cripple cities and counties and communities and strip away the services that not only they expect, not only that they deserve, but certainly services that they, well, not only demand, but do deserve. So, as I
And that
said,
really wraps up everything that all of you said
right.
yesterday. I think you're speaking not only for the schools, but for those city and
Yeah.
county officials. Were there every one of you when I heard you? You said you get it. You understand that we're both property owners. We pay property
Right.
taxes. We all understand that people are in tough times. It's just to do it in a way
Yeah.
that doesn't immediately cripple those services that we all count on and rely on.
And let me add just a little bit more context to public schools in particular. I've been around for a long time, and
Yes.
I remember in 2009, the state legislature took over all responsibility for the general fund. So they said at that time, it's no longer going to be a combination of property tax and state taxes. No longer property taxes will fund the general fund. The state's going to fund 100% of that. And I remember talking to a lot of other superintendents and central office people at the time. We weren't certain that was a good move, because then the state has 100% control over those funds
Mhm.
too, without districts being able to raise funds to the level that they viewed was necessary to provide services that the communities expected. So in 2009, took over responsibility for the general fund. December of 2009, Governor Daniels said, we need to shore up our budget. We're having a shortfall, so we're going to take 3.5% of the budgets of the previously approved budgets. We're going to withhold that 3.5% for EVSC. That amounted to $6.5 million. That occurred in 2029, and Governor Daniels said that's the new normal. You're going to have to learn to do more with less. Well, in today's dollars, we actually received $25 million less than we did in 2009 when adjusted for inflation. I'll say that one more time. Today, and this was as of 2024,
Right.
in our 2024 budget for that 1 year alone, we received $25 million less than we did in 2009 when adjusted for inflation. So when you look at that, when you look at potentially losing another $6.7 million on top of the $10 million that we already lose for property tax caps, that's a tremendous amount of loss that would make it very difficult to continue to offer the kinds of things that we offer now, especially on top of Governor Braun saying, I want teachers to be paid more. I applaud that.
And you agree with
I
that
want teachers to be
100%.
paid more.
Yes.
He said that the way to do that is through creating more operational efficiencies. Well, when the Department of Local Government Finance approves my budget, and then through property tax caps, and then if Senate Bill 1 goes through unamended, that would mean a reduction of 21% of my budget before we ever spend a penny. It's hard to squeeze out efficiencies when you've already lost 21% of your approved budget.
I think that's well said. And yeah, I mean, when you look at it that way,
Right.
it's easy to envision just the ramifications this could have if it
Right.
continues to go through as it
Yeah.
is now.
And I'm sure that there will be negotiations. That was a starting point in some time
Right.
in negotiations. You
Right.
start at
Sure,
a
you've
position
seen
that's
that.
untenable so
Right.
that you can reach better common ground. And I hope that's the process too. I know that Governor Braun doesn't want any citizen to suffer
Right.
through through any difficulty with a first responder response
Right.
time, just as an example.
Right.
But let's take a thoughtful, balanced approach to property tax reform. It is needed. Don't debate that. But we also want to make certain that we can provide the local services that our local communities rely upon.
And I think it's telling too when, as the case in that press conference, when multiple leaders from our community are standing together in unison saying, this is how
Right.
we really want to see things go. You're not having opposition, but you're all saying, whether it's city, county, schools, really making their case for
Well,
what could happen if we don't
right.
have some common
And
sense approach
I'll
here.
tell you just a little behind the scenes, if you will, pulling back the curtain. City government was there, county government, the library was there, certainly the schools were there. And I never heard one person say, I want more money for us.
Right.
They were concerned about, we're not going to be able to provide the services that we've promised
Right.
our public and what they expect.
Right.
That was the theme. They all agreed
Right.
we need to have property tax reform. Let's just do it in a thoughtful, reasoned way.
Well, appreciate your messaging about this along with your fellow leaders, because we want to make sure that this goes through in a way that is not going to have negative impacts on our own community.
Right.
So appreciate your
Well
thoughts
said.
on that, Dr.
Certainly.
Smith. And then last thing, in continued business last night, our school board provided an update on the superintendent search, which is always a strange thing to have a conversation with you about since
It
you're getting
is.
ready to
Yeah.
retire. But a timeline was shared about how this is going to fall into place throughout the spring. Anyone can go to our website, evscschools.com. We've got a button on the left, superintendent search. We're going to keep that updated. So following last night, you can see the agreement that we reached with the School Board Association. You can see the timeline, and we'll keep adding to that. And there's also the link now for the application, should there be someone out there that wants to apply.
And I believe if you also click on that site, nice, pretty blue banner, superintendent search.
Right.
I believe next Monday, then the survey goes up.
Yes, there is.
So,
yeah, and you want to just tell us briefly about that survey as far as what the purpose of a survey like
sure.
that.
So the board certainly wants to get feedback from our students, from our families, from the community in terms of qualities that they want the next superintendent to have, what they think is going well in the district, where are opportunities for improvement, and then what qualifications they think the next superintendent should have, and then just an open-ended response for anything else that you would like the board to know in selecting the next superintendent. Right. So we will send that link out to our families.
Yes.
And then the community is invited to click on the survey on the website of EVSC, and they can complete that survey at that time.
And
that goes live next month.
Yes, and definitely applaud our Board of School Trustees, because they understand the importance of this hire, and they're going to give it its due diligence to make sure that we have the right individual in place to continue on what you and all EVSC employees and families have been able to accomplish. So we'll keep people updated on that. And I think that wraps up last night's board meeting. So we appreciate you going through that with us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you, everybody.